Joining me on today's Franchise Focus to discuss Houston Texans is Cody Stoots. He is the host of The Wheelhouse every weekday, 3 to 7 Central on ESPN 97.5 Houston. I got to tell you, exciting times down in Houston. The necessary purge that took place following the Bill O'Brien fallout, obviously the Deshaun Watson fiasco. It seems like the Texans are on the up and up. And just before I get into specifics, what's kind of the vibe down there in Houston regarding the Texans?
Most excitement since 2017 with this team. And 2017 was the year, obviously, they got Deshaun Watson. There was a Fugazi training camp quarterback battle, and halfway through the first game, Deshaun Watson's the starting quarterback. And he came in there, and he was incredible. He had one of the best rookie seasons for a quarterback in like 7 games in 2017. So, yeah, there was some excitement in 2018, certainly for this team. 2019, I think there was some apprehension on if Bill O'Brien was the guy, and things started to fall apart after 2019 season. 2020 was awful, the DeAndre Hopkins trade. It's been a really couple of trying years for the Texans, but the excitement level, you get DeMeco Ryans in here, and he's a franchise legend, and on top of that, he was the most sought-after candidate in the entire coaching cycle. That got people excited. You go out there, you draft a quarterback in C.J. Stroud, and you make the Will Anderson investment. A really interesting free agency class from Nick Caserio, better than what he had put together recently. I've deemed it the era of good vibes in Houston. I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know when it's going to end. Probably week 1 when the Baltimore Ravens display a new Lamar Jackson-led offense and dominate you. But the era of good vibes are happening.
I think DeMeco Ryan said this is a quarterback competition between C.J. Stroud and Davis Mills. What did you see of that quote-unquote competition in OTAs and camps?
So minicamp, the first day of mandatory minicamp, if you showed up, you didn't know anything about the team, you'd be like, well, they got 2 quarterbacks that could, be right next to each other in a competition. Obviously, when you put context on it, it's Davis Mills going into his 3rd season in the NFL, and it's C.J. Stroud as a rookie. You're like, oh, okay, so Davis Mills isn't going to play. And I feel like most people have maintained that. And then you come back for the second day of mandatory minicamp, and C.J. Stroud's out there just making passes that the other 2 guys can't. Case Keenum's not a factor. Case Keenum's here for his mind. He's not here for his body. There's not a lot left there in the Case Keenum frame and the arm talent, things like that. But I do believe they're going to keep all 3 quarterbacks just because DeMeco Ryans went through the quarterback disaster in San Francisco, and Mills should be a nice backup. But the second day of minicamp, my goodness, C.J. Stroud, just beautiful, dropping in deep balls, and Mills is probably 5 yards in front of the wide receiver, and Keenum's 5 yards behind the wide receiver. And then there were a couple of throws over the 2 days of mandatory minicamp that C.J. Stroud made that Davis Mills just has not made with consistency in his NFL career. This is a Fugazi competition. This is set up so that Stroud defeats Davis Mills. I believe he'll defeat him in the middle of training camp, and they'll really start things going here with C.J. Stroud. And I would think by the time by the time joint practices get here with the Dolphins and the Saints, C.J. Stroud is for sure, unquestioned, the number 1 guy. Maybe not even announced, but the actions will speak louder than the words.
I have been asking all of my guests, Cody, to name a player maybe under the radar who might be able to make a fantasy impact in the 2023 season. There is a name you have for the Texans, and you have not brought him up yet. Who is it?
Tegan Quateriano. And you're like, who in the heck is that? The director? No, that's Quentin Tarantino. Tegan Quateriano is such an interesting player for this organization right now. He was a 5th-round pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. He was hurt basically all of mandatory minicamp, and he was hurt throughout a good portion of the regular season. But you could see, okay, there's a little athleticism here. Like, this is a guy who's a big guy. He's heavy. He's pretty strong. This is a guy that, okay, you could see him be on the field. You could get him on the field. You could put him on the field a few different times. And he played a couple of games down the stretch, and he looked like a capable NFL tight end. And the Texans haven't always had 3 capable NFL tight ends. Then you show up to minicamp, and I was like, who's that? I was like, oh, that's Tegan Quateriano. I'm a big minicamp and training camp. I'm a big body guy. Who changed their body? Who looks different? Tegan Quateriano looks like he watched that Arnold documentary and hit the gym a bunch. A lot of that baby fat that rookies sometimes have, it's gone. And the athleticism is really clear. I'd venture to say, from the size, speed, athleticism combination, he's probably the most athletic tight end the Texans have. And he's strong. They're going to put him on the field in 2 tight end sets. And this is a guy that could be that vulture in the red zone. He had a beautiful route that if he could just fine tune the tight end spot, he had a beautiful route in minicamp that he just turned the wrong way. And it's like, that's reps. He gets those reps. He fine tunes the route running. He may have something. Now, this is, again, it's a 5th round guy who is in his 2nd year, who didn't play a ton last year. So he's basically still a rookie. I know he's got a little experience under his belt, but he hadn't played a ton. But this is a guy with the athleticism, improvement of his body, the opportunity in the offense, and the uncertainty on some different positions from the wide receiver spot. Tegan Quintariano is a guy, it's deep leagues, you got to have him because he could easily take over if Schultz is hurt or banged up. And then he's maybe a very, very good flyer that you look up at the end of the year, 4, 5, 6 touchdowns because he vultured a few from this offense because they decided to throw on the goal line instead of hand it to Dameon Pierce or throw it to one of these wide receivers.